Hey, welcome to the Common Good Podcast. I'm just sad, Rob. Just sad. I'm just a sad man. Uh, it's just
Oh,
worse every day.
yeah,
Truly, it is a disaster, and I know it is hard for people who support the man or people who don't care about politics to recognize what a disaster it is.
yeah.
What's
I've
our
I've
role?
said this. Yeah, I've said this repeatedly, and it was been confirmed to me over the weekend and even yesterday. My Trump supporting friends are thrilled.
They can't be.
They are. They are. They're
They can't.
thrilled. They love it. They love it.
It's just not possible. Do you think they're telling themselves the
Oh,
truth? Like, are they
I
like,
don't know.
hey, do they even know about USAID? Do they know
Hmm.
about the Zelensky meeting? And
Hmm.
they're like,
Hmm.
we literally think that's a good idea, or
Yeah.
we love the
Yep.
chaos. Are they that? Are
Yeah.
they
They
that
love.
crowd?
Yeah, they love the chaos. They love the idea of just cutting everything. They've
Yeah,
they've lived under this,
yeah,
half truth about, the funds that the US sends around the world, and you know all the people that are getting money from the US, like getting their tax dollars, all that, you
yeah.
know all that stuff. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
It, look, it is. Look, you and I come from the religious tradition
Mhm.
where the story of the Apostle Paul begins with him as Saul. He oversees the execution of a follower of Jesus. He's then going to another town to continue the same arresting and abusing and cruel treating people that
Mhm.
he thinks are in a religious sect that violates his Jewish faith. And his job as a religious teacher and enforcer of some kind. This is the Apostle Paul in his previous life when he was known as Saul. He's on the road heading to a little town called Damascus, and an epiphany strikes him.
Mhm.
The voice of God, the face of
Mhm.
Jesus. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? And then Saul spends a few years figuring out that he was on the wrong path. I hold deeply to that story. It's the conversion story, it's the Christian
Mhm.
story. These friends of ours, family members, friends, they're on the wrong path. There
Yeah.
will be a moment where some of them will acknowledge in honesty
Mhm.
that the very thing they thought was so good has been so damaging.
Mhm.
We have a friend who wrote a sort of a heartfelt and satirical piece that was the eulogy to the United
Yeah.
States.
Yeah.
And I've thought a lot about that. Like, should we hold a funeral at the Lincoln Memorial for what was? Here's my thought currently. I think it's less like the death of America and more like a hostage crisis situation.
Mhm. Yeah.
MAGA has taken America hostage.
Yeah.
And because Donald Trump is a quitter and one who surrenders, as we'll get to
Yeah.
when he says to Volodymyr Zelensky, you should basically just surrender.
Mhm.
The peace deal is a surrender deal.
Mhm.
To put it bluntly,
Yep.
if Russia stops the fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops the fighting, Ukraine ends.
Mhm.
And Donald Trump wants there to be a peace deal. We'll talk about that. And the peace deal is Putin gets what he wants, you lose. But I think we have a hostage situation where
Yeah.
the United States has been
Yeah.
taken over by Trumpism,
Yep.
and we're in trouble.
I
We are in
Yeah.
trouble. I mean, I,
Yeah. I the thing that kind of rolls around in my head all the time is, do you remember when there were only 3 channels on the television? And,
yes,
yeah.
faintly.
And we'd sit down because we only had one television in the house, so we'd sit down together as a family and watch television in the evening.
Hogan's
And do you
Heroes.
remember
Yes, I would do that.
well, I don't think I ever watched Hogan's Heroes, but
Hmm.
uh, do you remember TV movies that
Yes.
maybe they would air in one night, maybe they would be a mini series that would
Uh-huh.
air over a
Sure.
couple of
Yeah.
nights,
Great idea.
and you would sit down and watch this serialized story play out over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 days. I remember one. Um, it was called America, um,
Okay.
but spelled with a K instead of a C.
Nice. Okay.
And it starred Chris Christopherson,
Oh,
which I think was my first encounter with Chris Christopherson, and kept that in mind because of the name Chris Christopherson. That's a name that sticks with you.
yeah.
Uh, and I remember the final scene of this movie. It was a movie about how the Soviet Union had taken over America, taken over the United States, and it was kind of a dystopian thing. And the the final scene was a couple of resistance folks, Chris Christopherson, one of them, um, walking into as I think I remember walking maybe towards like some communist American
Okay.
soldiers, those who had
Mm-hmm.
gone along with the Soviets, and they were carrying an American flag upside down.
Oh,
And
did you
that's the
stress
first time
that?
in my first time in
Oh,
my life I ever saw an American flag upside down. And the symbolism of it hit me of like this is a nation in crisis. And I think I think often over these days about that scene, how
mm,
shocking it was to me as, a kid, and how it's kind of burned into my memory. And Doug, we're it feels like we're living it now.
it sure does.
It feels like we are
Dude,
living it.
do you know who
We
else
are,
feels like we're living it? The spokesperson for Russia,
yeah,
who said yesterday the position of the United States White House is essentially in alignment with our
yes,
position on international affairs.
yeah,
Donald
totally is.
Trump, you might say you're not in alignment with anybody. We'll play the clip in a bit. Do you know who says you are in alignment with them?
Yeah,
Russia. Do you know who
yeah,
says you're not in alignment with them? Everyone else in the world.
yeah.
When
All of
when
our
the United
allies.
States went uh, to the United Nations vote, and three nations voted together, and the rest of the nations voted together. The three nations were the United States, North Korea, and Russia.
It's craziness. It's craziness.
On what possible grounds would the United States find its kinship in the United Nations with Russia, North Korea?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
I mean, there's only a few nations that even allow the government to execute its own citizens. I think that number is 7 or 8. The United States is in that group.
Hmm.
But rarely is there a group of 3 that involves Russia, North Korea, and the United States against
Yeah.
the rest of the world. So say what you want about, I like his policies. This is what I voted for. This is what I'm in for. Robert Reiling or Kryling on Facebook. If you're happy with that, you just keep cheering it on, because
Yep.
do you know who's going to live in shame for it? Your children. I, you may not care, but this is going to be a period like we look at the 1950s runaway narrative that was seeking to imprison other Americans
Yeah.
for their political
Yep.
views. It is
Yep.
so bad. And Trump's use of the federal government to push his way, I'm telling you, Rob, it is, we thought it would be bad. We did everything
Hmm.
we could. Yes, I'm a sorry, sore loser. And we need to say the very things we feared are
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw on Twitter this morning. I know you're off Twitter now. I
Yeah.
I remain behind enemy lines, And
Mhm.
I saw on Twitter today that there was somebody who had posted about the tariffs that we're going to talk about, and
Yeah.
and his whole point was, yeah, I didn't think he was actually going to do this.
Right. It was a negotiating tactic.
He said he was going to do it, but I didn't think he was actually going to do it.
He
I'm like,
won.
yeah,
He won the negotiation. He brought him to the brink and then they buckled and we won. So we didn't. That's what you do. That's how you negotiate. I heard it over and over and over. And you know what
yeah,
happened last night, friends? 25% tariffs against
yeah.
Mexico
Listen,
and
I
Canada
don't.
and an additional 10% against China. Do you know who pays the tariff? American
We do.
companies who buy the products. Do you know who they pay? American companies. Do you know who they give the money to? The federal government of the United States. You want to you want there to be greater efficiency so you don't have to pay more in taxes, but then Donald Trump has you pay 25% more for the products you're buying from Mexico, Canada, and 10% from China. And you pay that money to the federal government of the United States. And you say, great. Now, if you're all for tax increases, let's chat
Yep.
because there's a lot of things we could do that would be different. And maybe you don't care that you're going to pay more, but you know what you're not going to do with that money? Stop fentanyl from coming in the United States. Do you know why you're not going to stop fentanyl? Because you don't even believe how fentanyl gets in the United States. It doesn't come by immigrants. It comes by U.S. citizens in private vehicles across the U.S.-Mexico border. And it comes in commercial vehicles, trucks and ships. Do you know how they know that? Because 86% of the fentanyl that they have found has been in private vehicles driven by U.S. born citizens. That's U.S. Customs and Border Patrol numbers. And then 9% of it comes in commercial vehicles. 0.2% of it comes by immigrants. So you go ahead and tell yourself that what's going to happen is we're going to stop fentanyl. You know what will stop fentanyl from coming in this country? Stopping traffic from coming across the U.S.-Mexico border. If Donald Trump was serious about stopping fentanyl, that's what you would do. Do you think he's going to do that? Do you think he's ever going to stand in front of a camera and say, do you know who brings fentanyl in the United States? U.S. citizens. Do you think he's going to do anything about the demand for fentanyl?
No.
Yeah, you know that in 2018, they authorized to spend $6 billion on fentanyl over 2 years. That's $8.57 per American a year on the fentanyl crisis. This is not a serious man about fentanyl. Why does he want tariffs? Somebody's got to explain it. For what purpose? Can you imagine a government in Mexico saying, maybe the problem with fentanyl coming in the United States that's made by China in Mexico and then driven into the United States by U.S. citizens, maybe the problem is your U.S. citizens bringing the fentanyl into the United States and your U.S. citizens consuming it. Somehow Donald Trump has convinced himself and you that China and Mexico are the problem that is feeding U.S. demand and U.S. supplying other citizens with fentanyl. And you probably won't believe that, so go ahead and Google it. Rob, it is just so insane.
Yeah.
The stuff people believe. I mean, I hear it all the time. I'm sure you've heard it from your family and friends too. Like, of course we have to stop immigration. We have to stop fentanyl. And then you say things like 95% of it comes by U.S. citizens driving it in their deal with drug cartels. Yeah, we got to stop the immigrants. Yeah. Let's shut down immigration. You can shut down all immigration. All of it. No more immigrants. 99.7% of the fentanyl would still come in the United States.
Yep.
So you go ahead and tell yourself all the stories you want. And this is, frankly, this is true of Democrats as well. A number of Democrats I've heard, they're like, well, fentanyl is a problem. They are right. We probably do need to militarize the border. If you want to militarize the border, empty every single vehicle down to its bolts, or just stop them all. No more driving to Mexico. No more driving in the United States. That'll do the trick. Oh, that seems extreme. Okay. Oh, I thought extreme was what we needed to solve the problem. That would break commerce. Oh, I thought that's what we were doing, was breaking commerce. Okay. End of lecture. See, this is what sad does.
And here I thought
this
we were
is what
talking about
sad
tariffs.
does too. This is what sad does to a person.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
but here's the point about tariffs. All the tariffs.
What's the point about tariffs?
All the tariffs are related to fentanyl.
Oh,
I mean, this is the thing he says all the time.
yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are we putting tariffs on these three countries?
Yeah.
Because of fentanyl. And then you start finding out about how fentanyl comes in the United States, and you're like, why does charging more for beef from China or maple syrup, what is that going to do? Now, if he said we need to raise X billions of dollars and not think we're going to spend $8.57 a year per American on the fentanyl crisis, because we're taking it seriously, then maybe you could explain it to yourself. If he said we have to raise taxes, raise revenue, to pay to search every car that American citizens drive in the United States.
One of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is why Donald Trump is obsessed with the 1930s. Seriously, like, yeah. Number one, have you never watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Where, what's that guy that's turned out to be a conservative nut job? The guy with the glasses, who's Bueller, like the history teacher who's talking about what caused the Great Depression.
Yeah, that guy's become a right winger.
Yeah,
or is right winger.
Yeah, and talks about what caused the Great Depression. It was tariffs imposed. I mean, like, listen. Anybody who's watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
that's awesome,
knows what the result of this is going to be. But he talks about the U.S. being its richest in the 1930s. Like, listen, the 1930s was not a good time. There was the Great Depression. There was the rise of Nazism and fascism in Europe that led to World War II. Like, this is not the decade we want to repeat.
Yes.
And yet he seems hell-bent on it.
Hell-bent on it. Look, and this is the thing about Trump's logic. He doesn't get it.
Ben
across
Stein.
the board.
You, Alex. Ben Stein is who I was talking about.
Ben Stein. He doesn't get it. Ben Stein, that's the commentator, like the political commentator guy, was the guy in Ferris Bueller?
Yeah. Bueller.
Huh.
That guy. He was an actor before he became a commentator.
Huh.
Yeah. Doug, you probably haven't seen this. This is switching subjects, but staying on topic of Donald Trump doing crazy things. This is a post on Truth Social from this morning. Have you seen this?
No.
All federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests.
I did see this.
Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Yeah, no, they won't. The freedom to assemble, the freedom of speech, and the freedom to redress your government are enshrined No, they won't. And do you know who we should not have to be lectured by about illegal meetings in the street? The guy who pardoned the people who beat police officers.
Yeah.
That guy who called them, sent them, and then pardoned them.
Yeah.
Oh, no. They
Yeah.
are not going to stop
So
people from protesting. This is the kind of thing, man. I mean, now we're going to start talking Kent State. You're
yeah.
going to start rounding people up and arresting them.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So I have read over the last couple of weeks. I've read How Fascism Works, which was written in, I think, 2017 or 2018. I read On Tyranny. Currently reading an interesting book from the 1950s about an American reporter who goes to live in Germany and gets to know people who were Nazis, just everyday people who were Nazis, and he kind of tells their story. There is a concerted and programmatic effort to, and Doug, I have been one of those people that has resisted. I resisted calling it a cult. I resisted calling it fascism. I just all just felt hyperbolic to me. I think I'm past that point.
Yeah.
Because what we have is there like movement against the free press is absolutely happening. Movement against education is absolutely happening. Movement against political enemies is absolutely political opponents, making them enemies, and the weaponization of government and all of that is absolutely happening. Over and over and over again, we are seeing the very things that happened in the rise of fascist countries. We're seeing them happening right in front of our very eyes.
Well, some people are doing some things about it. The Squirrely Prepper Lifestyle says, I've converted 4 MAGA minds in recent days. That could be in one person, if it's multiple personality. But Squirrely, would love to hear more about that. In fact, tomorrow, right here where you're watching this, wherever you're watching this, we're going to have a group on called I Left MAGA. And it's a nonprofit and a group of people who've left the MAGA movement, and they organize around telling those stories and those narratives. A person named Rich is going to be on tomorrow. So you're going to hear all about this app, because I'll tell you, Rob, I hear this constantly from people. They're not going to change. Nobody's going to change. Like they do. We need to take very seriously that Donald Trump got 62 million votes in 2016, 72 million votes in 2020, and 77 million votes in 2024. So yes, more people each time he was available to vote voted for him. Some people say, well, that's because each year the number of available voters went up. That's true. But in 2024 versus 2022, Donald Trump got a higher sheer number of votes, new votes, increase in votes from 2020 than the new people eligible to vote. It wasn't just that the C went up.
Yep.
So that being said, need to acknowledge that full-throatedly, stare it down, see it every day. And millions of people said no to Donald Trump after saying yes to him. And then new people said yes to him after saying no to him or saying no thank you to him. So there are people who leave, but there's new people coming in. And that's where the problem lies. It is not, look, 65, 70 million people in this country are going to vote for each party no matter what. They never move. In fact, if you're watching this and you've only ever voted for one political party, you know what I'm talking about. That's the majority of people. Of the people who move around a little or people who are new into voting, those are the people that you can get. So there's going to be people who voted one way their whole life and then switched. And there are people who voted Democrat their whole life and then moved over to Trump. And there are people who voted for Trump 2 or 3 times even, and they can't support it any longer.
Who knows? Maybe
not
4, 5, 6,
give-
7 times.
As they do, all the fraud cases of voting that I know of
We're Republicans. Yeah.
Because that's where the hey, you know what I haven't heard anything about recently? Fraudulent
Stolen elections.
Yeah, that the election system isn't fair. I didn't hear a thing about that. What? Oh, they fixed it. Oh, great. Biden fixed it. Did it again. That guy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Democrats right now, can we? Because I am.
Listen, I read an article this morning about Democrats bouncing around different plans, floating different plans on how to protest the State of the Union address tonight. There's talk of everybody wearing pink, everybody wearing black. There's talk of blue and yellow scarves. There's talk of signs.
A lot of fashion. A lot of fashion conversations.
There's talk of noisemakers. There's talk of a mass walkout.
I like most of those.
Do you?
Yeah.
I
do. I've changed my tune. I've changed my tune.
Okay. You might need to convince me.
You convince me not to have changed my tune. I remember when that congressman, whomever it was, yelled out, "You lie!"
Yep. At Obama,
and everybody was like, "What just happened? The decorum, decorum." Oh yeah. Oh, we're a long way from that. So I'm in full.
You're in on this, like, try to make it a spectacle.
Okay, well, go on and convince me not, and maybe by the time you're
done, I will
say I've changed my mind.
It feels like they are not using the few mechanisms they have in the halls of Congress to slow down the confirmation of Trump's nominees and the movement of his agenda. They're not doing that, but they're gonna, have noisemakers during the State of the Union. Like, do something that matters.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll give you my best pitch.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep eating my granola bar while you do this.
It's awesome. Hey, stay healthy, man. Stay healthy and stay hydrated. I'll take you off big screen, or maybe we'll put you on big screen while you chew. There are 2 sides to politics. There's the policy side and the mechanism side. And then there's the public performance side. And they both really matter. They're both part of the American political system. That's why what a president or what a congressperson or what a senator says, how they say it, to use one of our favorite words around Vote Common Good, how they comport themselves matters. That's why we have all the decorum. That's why we have these big buildings. That's why we have no one speaks inside of this room when these people are in here. That's why people stand up when somebody applies. We do a whole lot of things that enculturate approval and disapproval, reward behaviors and try to limit other behaviors. We enculturate through the mechanisms of performance things that we want to cheer on and things that we want to avoid. That's separate from the actual mechanisms of policy passing, using the mechanism of shutting down the government, of stopping nominees, of grinding the wheels of government so they run slower so someone can't do this. Those are right foot, left foot. Those are yin and yang. That's salt and pepper. They're both part of it. The State of the Union has a single purpose: to galvanize the country and to show that we are a union. The whole purpose, the origins of it, and the function of it is at some point, the President of the United States says, ladies and gentlemen of America and Congress and distinguished guests, the state of the union is strong. And everybody, we're strong. It's all performative. That's the point. If you thought it was about policy, then maybe like me back in, 2001, you were like, Bushy said we were going to have hydrogen cars by the end of the decade. I'm still waiting. I know somebody working on hydrogen cars. Keep it up, Paul Scott. Keep up the good work. Guy drives a hydrogen car. He's doing it. It's not about that. It's a laundry list of nonsense things. They talk about priorities. The whole purpose of it is all of Congress together, the Supreme Court, the president, they're all in it together. It's a unified front, and the union is strong. So that's the function. Well, the union is not strong. The things Donald Trump is doing are violating the separation of powers. He is violating the law and saying he doesn't have to follow judges. He is threatening the press. He is now threatening citizens. He is threatening free speech. He is inflicting tariffs. This is so disastrous that the only performance available to Democrats is to somehow perform in a way that says, we do not agree that the union is strong. So I think whatever they're going to do, they had better say it. If they Amy Klobuchar this thing, well, I don't agree with every policy thing, but we have decorum. That's the most important thing we have, is to pretend that this is all working, like she did at the inauguration. No sympathy, no empathy, no truth-telling. You can do all of that and still be respectful. And there's very respectful ways to show that the union is not strong. And look, it could have been strong even though you disagree with who the president is. I've spent a lot of my time having to cheer on presidents I didn't agree with and didn't vote for. That's not what makes America weak. What makes America weak is what we are about to see in this video of Donald Trump basically saying, I don't align with allies. I don't have allies. I just want deals. I just want to make deals. That's not what a president does. And over and over and over. The man put out a video made by AI of what someone envisions Gaza looking like.
That includes a huge statue of himself made of gold.
The union is not strong. So,
okay,
right.
That's
my argument.
Okay,
that's my argument.
Fair. It's fair.
Listen, but I am not saying. Let me just be perfectly clear. I am not saying they shouldn't do all the other things. In fact, here's what I am begging, just begging, that 6 Republicans would have conscience in the House of Representatives. 6.
It's not going to happen.
I'm just begging. Don't interrupt a man's prayer time.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm just begging 6. And then they would do this, Rob. Here's what I hope they would do. Caucus with the Democrats until.
Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Trump changes on Ukraine. Just until Trump changes on Ukraine. There are more than 6 who believe Trump is wrong on Ukraine.
Right.
In the Senate. Just 3 who would say we're going to caucus with the Democrats until Trump change, and they're going to flip power, and then they can flip it back. And I will tell you, more than the Tea Party sort of approach or kicking out a Speaker of the House, you know where you got power? You just start swinging back and forth. You just swing from one side to the other and just say, oh no, you know what? When you do this, Donald Trump, we are the legislative branch.
Yep. Hey, Doug, throw
all.
Jason Kaufman's comment up on the screen when he says, what bothers me most about politics is the constant demonizing of the other side. Trump is a tool, that's obvious, but let's not pretend the Democrats are without fault for the union not being strong enough. Hey, Jason, listen, number one, I love you, man. Jason's a friend. If it's the same Jason Kaufman, which I assume it is, I love you, man. Listen,
sorry, wrong Jason Kaufman. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I don't love you. No, listen. Number one, we on this podcast have spent a lot of time criticizing Democrats. Maybe not in this particular episode, but though I think we have criticized Democrats, and we have done much criticizing Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and congressional leaders. I mean, we have criticized Democrats, but let's remember that right now we are in a moment in time where Republicans control the White House, the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and the Supreme Court. Like,
but Joe Biden, Hunter Biden's left.
Oh, okay.
They all did it. No, okay, but he's making a good point, right? Yes, yeah, for sure.
Both, yeah, but it's
but both sidesism here is not the point. Like, we can fully explain the failure of the current president of the United States. And look, again, if anything you have heard here, Jason or anyone else, is not true, please let us know. I don't want to say things that aren't true. There's enough true things to say. To waste time talking about things that are not true would be the ultimate waste of time in the middle of a crisis. Mm-hmm. I don't want to spend any time doing that. Everything we've been saying is actually true. Russia has said the White House position is in alignment with our position. Tariffs do not work. Fentanyl comes in by the United States of America. Donald Trump is threatening the rights of citizens and people to protest and gather and have meetings, but not if they're illegal. You know, they're not having illegal protests anywhere. And the guy whose supporters did illegal protesting, he pardoned them.
Yeah. Now, Doug, I don't want to cut you off, but
please,
we've got a hard stop at the top of the hour. So if we're going to talk about the,
well, we don't.
I mean, we're talking about the anticipated shit show that will be the State of the Union tonight. We might as well talk about the shit show that actually happened in the Oval Office on Friday.
All right, I've got video. I spent time watching video clips of the Zelensky Trump meeting.
I watched the entire thing,
and then I watched it again and again so I could edit out pieces. Do you remember when Joe Theismann
broke his leg?
His leg?
Yes, thigh.
Somehow that was like the first time they had cameras that could really capture it. And you were just like...
It was a Monday night game. Lawrence Taylor sacked him. And,
okay.
Yeah. And like the bone came through his pants or something like that.
Yeah, compound fracture. For men of a certain age, you're like, oh, seeing it over and over, it just gets burned in. That's how I feel about having watched these clips.
Love you, Jason. Bye.
Bye, Jason. Don't leave. Don't leave, Jason. Please watch. He's got stuff to do. Okay.
And the Steelers do suck. He's right about that.
The constant demonizing of other sports teams is just something that has to stop. Do you know who else sucks? Cleveland sucks.
No.
Bears suck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why do you have to vote?
Hey, listen, okay. I can criticize the Cleveland Browns all day long. Listen, go on Zelensky.
Okay, here's clip one. Pay attention to what Donald Trump says here. And to some of you, trigger warning, here he comes.
I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either.
I'm not aligned with anyone. Yes, that's true. Other than Russia, who said yesterday, your position is ours. We are aligned. You may say you're not. Turns out you're not aligned with the world. And with all due respect, Mr. President, to quote J.D. Vance, you should be aligned with a United States ally who was attacked by a country that every single intelligence agency has said works for the harm of the United States.
Yeah.
You should be aligned with Ukraine. That's the problem. The fundamental problem here is that we have a current president who says, all I want to do is make a deal. I don't want there to be allegiances and alignments between nations.
I know it might be pointless to point out the logical inconsistencies of Donald Trump, but he says in this clip, I can't negotiate with you because you hate Putin. And that is keeping the negotiation from happening. And then he says, but I can tell you this, the people I am negotiating with, the Russians, they don't like you very much either. Like, wait a minute. Why is it that you can't negotiate with Zelensky because he hates Putin, but you can negotiate with Putin who hates Zelensky?
Yeah. Why do you need Zelensky to come somewhere as opposed to Russia coming somewhere?
And that is emblematic of his approach to this whole thing. It is, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, Doug, it is a negotiation of surrender. That's what it is. He wants Zelensky to quit, wants Ukraine to surrender, and that's it.
Yes.
Like, he wants Russia to win.
Yes, that because he has all kinds of motivations for it and says it's because he wants peace. And Zelensky's like, look, I will have a ceasefire agreement if there is a security guarantee. Trump's like, you can't get a guarantee. No guarantees. You just have to surrender first, and then we'll see what happens.
Yep.
No, we would rather lose than surrender.
Right.
This is the same.
Give me liberty or give me death. Right? Like, isn't that kind of an American thing, I thought?
Yes. And the United States and every other democratic ally nation in the world has said Russia has committed war crimes. Russia is the aggressor. News people ask Republicans over and over, did Russia
invade Ukraine?
Start
the war.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. Doug, now, you could say Russia had a right to. You could. Sure. There's a lot of things you can say. They're not saying them. They're somehow saying, wars have people on both sides. You both must have done something. No, you have someone who's beating another person and aggressively attacking them. They're defending themselves, and you're saying you just need to give up.
Yeah.
Again, if Russia stops fighting, the war is over. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine is over. Right. That's just true.
I think the other thing to keep in mind here, it is imperative to remember that one of the first major political humiliations of Donald Trump was the first time he was impeached. And if you remember why he was impeached the first time, it was because Congress had sent military aid, designated, appropriated military aid to go to Ukraine. And Donald Trump withheld that military aid as a way of blackmailing Zelensky, who was the new president of Ukraine, into doing an investigation into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's business relationships in Ukraine. There was this desire on Trump's part to get some dirt on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. He wanted there to be some fraudulent investigation that he could point to. He wanted Zelensky to go along with it, and he held the congressionally appropriated military aid over Zelensky's head. And he and Zelensky had the perfect phone call.
Yes.
And that's why and Zelensky would not do it. And so it didn't happen. But he was impeached for that reason.
Yes. The two worst moments for Donald Trump's presidencies have been in the Oval Office in conversations with President Zelensky.
Yeah, this is...
He hates the man.
Don't think this is not personal.
100% personal. And he's like, just a deal, just want a deal, just want your mineral rights. Okay, sub-note, because you brought it up a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it's a great point. The $350 billion that we've sent to Ukraine went in the form of military equipment that we already had and were using in the United States. And now that's being remade in the United States for us to have freshened, updated ones.
Yes.
We gave our secondhand pots and pans and then bought new ones. And
Ukraine is our military thrift store. That's what it is. It's goodwill. Like, so that's what we're doing.
So did the money go to Ukraine or did the money go to U.S. contractors?
Yes, went to Lockheed Martin and Halliburton.
By the way, in 1994, the United States joined in what's called the Budapest Memorandum on Security Assurances after Ukraine gave up its 1,900 nuclear weapons that were in its territory after the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
The United States, Belarus, and the UK, France, and China gave assurances in security agreements that they would protect Ukraine. Yeah. We literally have a deal, international deal, since 1994 to protect Ukraine. And Donald Trump says, I don't have any allegiances. There it is. Can a man honestly just say, we're done with that. Those agreements we've made, they're broken. This is why countries all over the world right now have been saying we're not sharing intelligence with the United States. Yep. We're not trusting our international partners if it involves the United States. The United States is going to be alone in the world whenever other nations can make it so.
It's not good.
It is so bad. Okay, and your comment that it wasn't personal, here's proof it was personal. J.D. Vance.
Gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Have you expressed appreciation in this meeting? Give some appreciation to this president who's trying to save your country. Let's just stop for a minute. Donald Trump just spent the previous 4 minutes saying about how stupid Joe Biden was for giving Ukraine $350 billion in support. This administration has given Ukraine nothing. This administration has said you need to surrender and sign a peace deal. This administration met separately with Russia without anyone from Ukraine to strike a deal. And they say to him, you should thank Donald Trump. Why have you not thanked him in this meeting? Why does J.D. Vance want him to thank him in the meeting? Because they have the press in the room, right? The whole point, I guess, is you should have said it to Donald Trump. And Zelensky says, I've said it to the American people over and over. He said, but that's not the point. say it to the president. You think it's personal? Of course Donald Trump thinks it's personal. Donald Trump thinks that anyone disrespecting him is disrespecting the country. And anyone who respects the country and not him hates America. And anyone who thanks America and doesn't thank him isn't thankful and is disrespectful to the country. That's what they literally said.
Yeah.
Now, there are times when we have to infer what Donald Trump or J.D. Vance are saying because it's kind of hard to hear them and figure it out, and it doesn't make any sense. And then there's days like last week.
Yeah.
It's that clear.
Yeah. And we
Thank
need to
him
talk about
personally.
And
in
we need
front
to talk
of the media. Hold that thought for a minute. Not you. Hold the thought that it's in front of the media. Express that thought, Rob.
And we need to talk about Donald Trump's hair. Because wow, is it bad in this Oval Office? Like, I'm curious what it's going to look like tonight. No, it's not. Like, and listen, I don't say this to make fun of him. I'm just like, this is not good.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's
not good.
He's losing his hair, and it is not just a comb over. It's a comb around and a swoosh and a. I mean, stuff's coming from places. It's not. I mean, Doug, you were on a text chain where I took a screenshot and zoomed in on Donald Trump's hair and said, "We need to talk about this."
He's losing his hair. We're losing our minds. He's losing his hair. And who cares? Who cares, Donald? The vanity of the man and the insecurity is just incredible. So he's not aligned. He wants to be personally thanked.
Yeah.
For telling him to surrender. Here's one more.
Ask you.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014.
So there is Zelensky trying to explain to J.D. Vance how we got here. And he says to J.D., what kind of diplomacy do you think we can have with these people? Here's the history. Quick little history lesson. Trump is like, 2014, 2015? Well, I wasn't here then. I mean, I'm going to be the deal maker. Why would a war stop between Russia and Ukraine? Well, probably because I'm here. This is what's delusional. Right. That Donald Trump is sitting there lost in the conversation, gets confused on the years, and then is like, well, I wasn't there. This is the emotional limit of this man.
Yeah. He
doesn't have the ability to track what's going on beyond him.
Right.
When people hear him say, I'm the only one who can fix it, they're like, he's just being a leader. No, he is delusional.
Yes.
And all the people around him who know Ukraine and know Russia are saying to him, sir, you are being used. Here's how we know.
Your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems.
Okay. Before you jump in, Doug, let me just say I'm I'm really happy to hear J.D. Vance come out against a draft.
Yes. Shouldn't be conscripting people. Yeah. Look, the number one talking point from Russia is Ukraine is demoralized. Ukraine has to force its people. Ukraine has to lie to people. Ukraine has to empty its prisons because the people of Ukraine are weak and don't want to fight to protect the country. That's what Russia says about Ukraine. Yep. All of those things are true about Russia and not true about Ukraine. J.D. Vance is saying the talking points and propaganda of Russia in the White House, and then says, I've seen it on TV, that you take people on propaganda tours. This is J.D. Vance saying that Zelensky is using propaganda to lie about his country's actions in this war. That is not true of Ukraine, and it is true of Russia. And what J.D. Vance said is very specifically the Russian arguments.
Yep.
And Donald Trump said in the meeting, I won't even suffer people through it, Vladimir Putin went through a lot during the whole Russia thing.
Yeah.
He and I suffered together.
Right.
No, Russia interfered in the 2016 election. People were put in prison for it. Sanctions were in place. The Mueller report shows it. The CIA shows it. The FBI shows it. They did it. Donald Trump still doesn't believe that they did it. And then says, Putin and I really bonded over that. So you want your guy to be bonded with Putin and to be attacking Zelensky. Why? Because we don't want to give them more support? Because somehow they're the reason the war is going on? You want them to surrender to Putin for what? There are reasons people don't believe things. And usually it has to do with it's just too hard to believe the truth.
Yeah.
For so many people, the reality of how incompetent and wrong and corrupt Donald Trump is just hard. Because if you don't believe those things, that Donald Trump is actually incompetent and corrupt, then you have to think, no, he knows what he's doing. Those are your two choices, right? Unfortunately, those are the two choices. He's corrupt and incompetent, or he knows what he's up to and it's working. So you're at this fork in the road. And if you take the he knows what he's doing, then you just have to assume that. Or you have to backpedal all the way back to the fork in the road and go the other direction. And at some point, people are just like, oh, he doesn't actually know what's going on. He doesn't understand Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what he understands is he got impeached because Zelensky didn't do what he wanted.
And I want to make a deal so there's not a war anymore.
Yeah.
World War III? You know what prevents World War III? The United States keeping Russia from invading other countries.
Yes.
It again is so incredible.
Why are we going back to the 1930s when Neville Chamberlain? Yeah. Hey, I got to get running. I got an appointment I got to get to.
Is that a euphemism for I got to go to the bathroom, Rob?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's not this time. Though early on, Squirrely Prepper had to take a
cut away.
Which,
all right. Well,
so
okay.
Just for folks,
for
folks who might be wondering, we are not going to live stream the shit show tonight.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Boycott, protest. The union is not strong. Donald Trump does not deserve your time, your energy, even though we just spent an hour talking about
ratings. Or your ratings. Jim, Alex,
Kimberly,
Laurel,
Squirrely Prepper.
Mary.
I'm going to mention the people on YouTube because that's our favorite place. If you're
Barbara,
anywhere else, we love it.
Jason.
Barbara.
See, I'll throw the. I'm not discriminating against the Facebook people.
Yeah, you can have them.
Hey, Robert. Obviously, these two are imbeciles.
Yeah.
Early comment. Totally.
Yeah. Obvious. Look at it. Robert.
No argument out of us.
Amen.
I'm in an attic, he's in a basement, and we're just ranting about the president of the United States.
Yeah.
How could we not be imbeciles?
People who want to declare themselves middle-aged men yelling in their attic and basements.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, let's just say it, of our mom's houses. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right.
So my mom's house.
Okay. Good time, everybody.
Okay. Hey, do some good for somebody. Bye.